Hi Apeksha, how are you?
Very well, Nitin. How are you?
I'm amazing. Today we are going to learn everything around how to build a eyewear brand because ये category बहुत fascinating है. बहुत बड़ा market है, बहुत बड़ा category है. And with the entry of players like John Jacobs, you guys are killing it by the way. Very very
Thank you
amazing
very much for
product.
saying that.
I have been a John Jacobs customer for a while now. तो मैं खुद बहुत excited हूँ इस conversation के लिए. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
But you have to take a pledge that whatever you're going to say, it's going to be truth, but nothing else. Do you agree?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's start that. Amazing. तो पहले तो शुरू करते हैं. Like we wanted to know who is Apeksha, where do you come from, what's your background?
Okay. So I've been in the fashion and retail business throughout my career. So I started with an undergraduate degree in business studies, but I fell in love with fashion while interning at Future Group. So that was my first taste. This is also the time when Kishore Biani was the poster child of retail. And my timing was super good because that's also the first time that foreign direct investment in retail was allowed. So with that love and passion for the fashion and retail industry, I actually decided to do a master's at NIFT from fashion management. And from that is where I've been in retail like from the beginning. So I started with Reliance Brands as a fashion buyer with Diesel. I had a stint with Marks and Spencer after that, and then Lenskart invited me, in fact, to help set up a business in the premium eyewear space, and that's how the start of John Jacobs happened.
So for those who don't know, what exactly is a fashion buyer? उसका क्या role, responsibility क्या रहता है?
Okay, so fashion buyer is a very new role in India, but it's the most glamorous job in the fashion industry. So the fashion buyer's responsibility is to decide what the brand will sell for their market. So, for example, it will be what are the sizes, what are the styles, how frequently will you launch, what does the customer like. So it gives you also the opportunity to shape what the customer likes, and it's a great pleasure to see that the world is wearing clothes that you selected for them.
So basically, whatever we guys were wearing, you were the one behind the scenes.
Sure, and it also has, and today a fashion buyer is even more glamorous because you have all of these extremely glamorous fashion weeks and you have buying events.
Yeah.
You're jet setting around the world, you're researching trends in the best markets in the world. So definitely peak job in the fashion industry for sure.
Have you seen Friends series?
I have.
Do you know Rachel wanted to go to the same? She was aspiring to be the
Yes.
fashion buyer, right?
Yes.
Is this the same role that we're
It's
talking
absolutely
about?
the same role.
Okay, amazing. So then you transitioned to a role into Lenskart. They invited you to be a part
Yes.
of John Jacobs, right?
So yes, so I was in the founding team of the business at the time. Lenskart, of course, was doing the multi-brand retail play, and they wanted to transition to becoming a house of brands. And that's when, so John Jacobs was already at the time a product label within Lenskart, but it wasn't a brand.
Okay.
So then we built it up to be the premium brand within the setup. So it is definitely a brand very much from the heart of India and within the Lenskart ecosystem, but we run it now independently. It's spun off completely as an independent brand.
But why John Jacobs? Like, why at all start a house of brands within Lenskart ecosystem?
So let me give you the value of building a brand, right?
Yeah.
When you're building a product label, then your sales and revenue is all the value that you create in the brand. Brand building is very painful and very long term. It takes years for the customer to recognize a brand or to associate any value with it. But if we manage consistently to build value, that value is added over and above whatever your revenue will do. So if you look at the world's most valuable brands, Apple, Coke, Nike, some of these businesses, it's not just the product that they're selling. It's not just their revenue or profits that drive their psychological value in the market. It's also the value of that brand. What is a life without that brand?
Yeah.
Right. So I think for every business there's merit in building brands of value that customers want in their lives, and it takes years to reap any benefits out of it. But once it's there, it's truly a thing of beauty that you've created.
So, but I still wanted to go deeper into the
Yes.
genesis or ethos of why you started John Jacobs, right? Let's just talk about why John Jacobs as a name.
Simple, actually. It was, so John Jacobs Bosch is the founder of eyewear as we know it. He was also the founder of Ray-Ban.
Okay.
And Bosch and the Bosch and Lomb lenses, that's where it came from. So he was really the founder of the industry by itself. Also, we knew from the very beginning that we want to build a global brand. So we needed a name that could transcend geographical boundaries, potentially be also a little bit ambiguous ambiguous but global. That was really the idea. So 2015 is when the name sort of found its way. 2018 is when we did the first brand work around it. And then 2021, we rebranded the business. So John Jacobs, today the identity that you see is only 2 years old, but the brand name has been set since 2015.
But was it a difficult choice or easy choice to name it John Jacobs? Because, I'm sure people outside India
Yeah.
would be very much aware of, or at least my perception is, would be very much aware of who John Jacobs may be, right?
Sure.
The name.
Yeah.
But when it comes to familiarity of John Jacobs as a person, was it easy for you to name it? Like it was instant, कि यार यही रखते हैं.
The original idea was not honestly to drive recognition for that person. And like since your audience obviously is interested in knowing about building a brand by itself, it really depends on who your target audience is and what they value, right? If your target audience values, for example, that if you're an Indian brand, then it should have an Indian name, then that's the name one should go for. And we've seen obviously in the last 3-4 years great examples of very, very strong Indian brands coming in and they've chosen Indian names. Often now global brands, especially because they're appealing to the Gen Z audience, are choosing extremely abstract names that have no real origination. That can also be one. For us, it was really not. It was the idea was not to drive recognition for John Jacobs, the
Person.
person. The idea was that at the time, in that era of brand building, giving your brand a person's personality was sort of important. So if you see a lot of D2C brands that came at the time were named after people, but they were imaginary people.
Right.
And it really was, I think we were riding that wave for the most part. So I don't know how many people know John Jacobs Bosch, right? But also hopefully now that name is ours to own in some ways. That's the goal.
But was it legally also yours to own, like available, or do you have to also talk to the person that we are naming this?
No, so we didn't take the full name, right?
Yeah.
So John Jacobs, within the eyewear space, the trademarks and brand markers were all available for us to take.
Yeah. But how important for a eyewear or perhaps any brand at all?
Yeah.
Because they spend so much of time in figuring out what they should name it.
Yeah.
How important is naming a brand right?
I think it's super important because, and I'll give you a real example. Even we did consider that should there, like when we started to spin off the brand from the parent company and build it independently, whether there's merit in, renaming the business. Because at the time, we also had aspirations of going global. This is before we entered UAE and before we entered Singapore. Some of these conversations were happening. But it becomes quite hard because by that time we already had over 1 million customers already and the customer stickiness was very high. So if your product or your brand already has some traction, then later changing that doesn't add really strong value. And we've seen it with so many brands that get renamed. It becomes a huge marketing and brand expense. But for the customer, if the name sticks, it sticks. So really important to do the research, spend the time, especially if you want to build a brand for the long term. If the goal is to exit to another parent, then I don't think it has that much merit, but still quite an important selection.
So let's just say I want to start a brand. Okay?
Yeah.
How do I go about finding a name or figuring out a name? What should I look at? What parameters I should focus upon?
I think in today's era, it's much easier. I'll give a hack, right? There's also ChatGPT and some of those pieces. Today, I think there is a lot of merit in using artificial intelligence, building consumer profiles online, sharing what you want your brand to stand for, whether you want it. And I have trialed this. There are a lot of prompts that you can use where you can be like, I want a single syllable name, starts with this alphabet. This is the audience that it is going to cater to. It should have certain meaning, and then generate 10 ideas. It will generate 10 ideas. And that's a really interesting starting point, which I think when we started the brand, we didn't have. So I think today we should, I would recommend the audiences to leverage the power of artificial intelligence and bring some of that. Also, it does help to make a decision very early on whether you will brand your product, for example, with your name, in which case that name has to have a certain desirability, because I don't want to have an awkward name printed on my product, right? So and like in glasses, for example, very limited real estate. So you don't get so much opportunity to brand. You can't have a very long name.
Right.
You can't have very odd scripts in the name. So the choice of branding, logo, all of that will depend on the real estate, what you're doing. If you were to create an apparel brand, then there's more opportunity for sure in terms of real estate available. So you can choose, longer names, but that also is a consideration.
That's an amazing perspective.
And it should be early, and I think some of these decisions should be made early.
Okay, but I wanted to go deeper on this, right? Because it's a very, very important, and I've seen so many people spending and wasting too much of time on figuring out a right name.
Yeah.
It's important, but you have to, if you can get a framework right, I think
Yeah.
it's very easy for people who are trying to enter into
Yeah.
this. You have focused upon consumer insights and what kind of audience you're catering to, and that's
Yeah.
how your name should correlate with them.
Right.
What kind of parameter one should look at when it comes to audience? कि यार उसकी एज ये होनी चाहिए या वो इससे पहले बॉर्न होना चाहिए, मेल है, फीमेल है. What all parameters do you generally look at while figuring out कि ये मेरी audience है?
Okay. Tough but also easy. See, I think when we used to break down demographic audiences, पहले age बहुत ज़रूरी facet होता था. But आज की date में आप देखेंगे तो age is not super important, right? Lot of young or older millennials behave very similarly to Gen Z audiences. Cyclicity बहुत है trends का. What was popular in the 2000s and 90s is now back.
Yeah.
Right? So what is age as a metric anymore? I think it's really life stages, which is quite important. I would see life stages and aspiration of the customer. What do they value, right? So I'll give you an example. Today there are many cohorts of customers that have deep values, and that deep value will drive what they consume. Some consumers are very focused on clean consumption, right? And that will transcend to food, to beauty products, to clothing. They only want to wear sustainable or organic clothing. And likewise in glasses like ours, for example, we don't use plastic, we don't use nickel, some of these things. Those things will add value, right? Some brands are also focused on what is the value of the company. When you're young, you can choose your values. Once you're a bigger company, right, your stand on environmental rights, people rights, human rights, all of that also makes a big difference. So the persona, I think today, values or aspirations are a more important starting point than age, because you could be in your 40s and care for the same things that you care for in your 20s.
Yeah.
Also, propensity to spend. Earlier, we used to have very clear life stages, right? That in your 20s, you have less money, 30s, slightly more money, 40s, more money than that. No longer true, right? There is a lot of conspicuous consumption that very young people are doing. So again, I would really choose to think of them in terms of what is their propensity to spend, how frequently would they want to buy, and those things. So I think these factors, so creating the persona would be, I would do a full study. I would live that customer's life. So fine, you want age group, you can
How do you live that customer life?
So let me bring this up. So I can imagine what is that person's prospective job. Where do they like to go out after work? Or if they're studying, then what do they do after school? What do they like? Theater. So then if they like theater, then what are the other clothing brands that they would wear? Do they like footwear, beauty? Where are the places that they're hanging out in? What do they value? Do they value going to concerts and music events, or do they like quiet hikes in nature? That is the level of detailing I would do for consumer cohorts, because I think that decision, if you take early, makes life very simple, because then you will know fully how you will market them, where you will reach out to them. Then you're not burning your money on hitting multiple darts and seeing what sticks. Especially for a young business which has lesser money, you want to be very, very tactical. And I might just say that I will go after only 2 consumer segments today, because I can reach them the best and I can resonate with them the fastest. And my evolution will say, okay, I will get segment 3 and segment 4 and so on and so forth.
So, I mean, you rightly pointed out at the end that businesses who don't have money,
Yeah.
you were a part of Lenskart, the funding was easy, obviously, right? You had a good team to back you up, I'm sure. But someone who is like starting up,
Yeah.
2 लोग हैं, 3 लोग हैं,
Right.
पैसा भी raise नहीं किया है.
Right.
For them, it's very, very difficult to conduct or spend too much of time doing all of these market researches.
Right.
Any quick hacks for them to figure out कि यार 2-3 चीजें ये तो देखनी ही चाहिए मुझे at least?
Please, I will tell you, today it's easier than ever before. So even logo, I'll give you a very simple. Between again, I use ChatGPT like almost shamelessly. So I have actually created. I can do full consumer profiling also on ChatGPT. It's literally a 15-20 minute job. You just need to know what you're looking for. Even logos today, you don't need to spend too much money. There are lots of freelance services like a Fiverr, etc. And in literally $20, you can get something. Or if you're feeling very savvy, then go on Midjourney. You can generate that. You can also generate full prototypes of what you want through these AI image generation pieces. So you can fully visualize your brand, and it doesn't require months of work. I'll be very honest, it will not.
It's just a one-day job in reality.
Yeah, you need a clear idea. That's important. That starting point of thought is super important. But once you have that, then to validate your idea is also not difficult, right? Also, in industries like eyewear, there is also 3D printing and some of those technologies. So you can create prototypes very quickly, get feedback quite quickly, and go to market time today for most businesses is actually quite small, right? And this is not just eyewear. I would say for almost any consumer-facing business, which is not very tech or innovation driven, the go-to-market is not a very long timeline because there are so many white labeling opportunities that exist already. So that clarity of thought on who you're targeting, what your product will be, is super critical. Everything else you can figure out.
But still, I mean, so many of brands are there, right? John Jacobs is obviously leading the race in this category, so as to say.
Yeah.
But do you find a little bit of somewhere in the mind that are we creating a conflicting brand within the ecosystem of Lenskart? कभी ऐसा फील होता है कि यार कंपटीशन अपना ही तो नहीं हो जाएगा कहीं कल को जाके, like within the Lenskart ecosystem?
So within Lenskart, there is no conflict. And that's largely because when the business was transitioning to becoming a house of brands, each brand has its own product specialization and its own pricing structure within the ecosystem. So for Lenskart, the goal is that starting from the mass brand to the premium and super premium eventually, they want to have a stronghold over the entire brand portfolio, right? So the position that John Jacobs has within the portfolio is quite unique to itself. Mostly because if you see in the Indian market as well, the bridge and premium segments are only just opening. And you can think about it from the point of view of any category actually. Even in bags or footwear, beauty, it's still it's a category that's opening up.
Yeah.
So it's not as penetrated, it's not as crowded, right? In eyewear, we had the advantage of being first movers and growing through the scale that Lenskart afforded us. So that's why we are number one, but there is no conflict within that. And we have clear markers of what will John Jacobs do and not do is clear from day one.
What is that?
So we have very predefined consumer segments, and we don't move away from that. Right. So, for example, when we had originally, and I'll give you examples of the consumer segments that we go after. So, our biggest consumer segments are actually the staple shoppers and white collared are two of our consumer segments that we are super focused on. And these consumers are, like the name explains to you, very classic oriented. They focus on quality, the value, premiumness of a product. So the way to win with this customer is that you build a superior product and you keep offering consistent levels of service, and that you win that customer for a long time, right? And they are not price conscious, but they will not pay if the value is not right for the price that they're paying. So in our case, when we say we're priced for play, but we are not a price player. So I will not compete with price, or we are not very deep discount oriented for this reason, because we want to ensure that you get the right product experience at the right price. And despite the fact that if you see global supply chain costs have gone up significantly, in our case we've not increased prices of many of our products, especially the classic assortment that we've had for 4-5 years now. It stays the same price as it was earlier. Then when we transitioned to fashion, we added a segment called dynamic fashionista. Now the dynamic fashionista are people who have a pair that they love to match their clothes. They'll have a pair for going out. They'll have a pair for work. And then again, see, that's why I mentioned that this could be regardless of age. I could be fashion oriented in my 40s versus I could be fashion oriented in my 20s. This customer also loves the sunglasses category a lot. And this is the customer that we do a lot of these collaborations and partnerships with in terms of fashion associations and Bollywood associations and things like that. And recently we added one consumer segment. It's called the Cuspal Gen Z, which is basically young consumers of the Generation Z. However, because a product has a certain price positioning, we want them to enter the workforce and have disposable income. So we call them the cuspal Gen Z, which is the early Gen Z generation that's now starting to earn money, becoming 25, 26 years old. So that became so now this definition is very clear for us. We will not go after short-term trends. We don't go after anything that is not guaranteeing a quality or a longevity proposition, because that's super important to the brand.
Can you give me an example of short-term trends that you generally don't go after? Just an example.
Yeah, just an example would be like right now it's very easy to latch on to say an OTT television show that is a one-time flavor of the season, right? And it's a trend. We would typically not do that. There are also like certain trends that we know that the customer is better served through shopping from, say, more high street brands and things like that, because they can do it at a much lower price point than us. That trend is short-lived. The customer will only wear it for a couple of months and probably dispose that product. That's against our brand's ethos entirely. Like for us, the focus on longevity is super important. So we have a lot of focus on repair, long-term use, replacing lenses where you can, so that your product lasts for a very long time. So because that's the underlying principle that we have built the brand on. So anything that forces the customer to dispose the frame early, we will not do.
But isn't this ideally the ethos of all the companies who are trying to build a business? Like, I want my companies or customers to have a very good experience or have a very good service.
Yeah.
Do people really don't focus on those aspects still?
See, in fashion, there is a concept of forced obsolescence or redundancy, which is that I will force you to buy things that are trendy only for a short period of time.
Okay.
Or I will reduce the quality, and we are seeing, like if you see much of the high street and, not high street, basically fast fashion and super quick fashion and all of that is built on that ethos, right? And there, of course, you may have a superior fashion experience, and you will have markers of good customer service, like on-time delivery. You may have returns, price is great, but what after, right? What is that product's life cycle? And today, more at least in our case, we think of it quite actively. So for us, we would love that there is multiplicity of pairs, and I want you to have more than one pair of glasses in your wardrobe, but I want you to think of it at long term. Right, I want you to own that long term, and because glasses by itself, I can upgrade the lens and automatically keep making it new, right? And we can keep repairing, doing new polishing and some of those things in our stores and our partner stores, etc. as well. So that becomes important. But that's the principle of the business.
Okay.
We don't want
would that be fair to say that your brand positioning is somewhere not really catching up short-term trends or short-term fashion as such?
Yeah, so see, even if we do trends, the way we will do trends will really be in the way that, yes, it's got upgraded classic, a look and feel of an upgraded classic. So let me give you an example. You will do an aviator. We also do fashion aviators, which could have, say, a reflective lens or some of that. If you get bored of that pair, we'll change the lenses for you. So it's an updated classic. It's very, very rarely super, super high fashion, because we think that some of those trends are going to die, and then that's not the positioning of our business.
Okay, amazing. Let's talk a little bit about the supply chain of the product. You talked about how long and how durable these the products are, and the material selection is also very, very critical. What exactly is the supply chain of your brand, of your product?
So John Jacobs is in a unique setup where we use this catchphrase called mastery of material. That's our, again, one of our building blocks of our brand. So most businesses will say we'll work on metal or plastic, right? In our case, we have 4 material groups that we work on. So we don't work on plastic at all. We work on something called acetate, which is basically a cellulose derivative, right? And today we are going to be launching very soon a eco-conscious version of acetate called bioacetate, which has no plasticizers, nothing in that. By itself, we don't use any plastic, right? Then we have stainless steel.
Are they better biodegradable?
They are equally durable, but they have the characteristic that they can biodegrade faster than regular acetate. So regular acetate is the original material. In our case, for example, we will only work with one particular, centrally source all of the acetate, so we can control that quality. Mazzucchelli is the Italian acetate manufacturer that we would exclusively source from. And then there's stainless steel. But even in steel, for example, cheaper brands can mix nickel, copper, some of those pieces. But in our case, we'll use stainless steel. We also work with titanium. So titanium is like space grade material. It'll be maybe 20% the weight of steel, but it'll be 2x its strength. And that's a pretty significant part of our portfolio. And then we work with another material which is injection based. It's called TR90. So each material has a specialist supplier associated with it, and they have specific criteria for how they're manufactured, how they're sourced, the raw materials, and then we standardize the parts across. Now we of course have the privilege of scale. In our case, we are a large company, so we can choose to centralize all parts. So all of our suppliers will source from the same parts manufacturers or the same raw material manufacturers, and we control both aspects: the finishing, the production, the raw materials, and then we also do 100% quality checks. So. And that is not usual in the industry. Lots of companies will just do lot quality checks, which is that of every 10 products, I'll check one product, it's fine the whole lot.
But you check all?
Yes.
All the single pieces?
We have a 100% quality check practice.
Okay.
And the reason we do that is honestly because the Indian consumer is extremely demanding, right? At our price positioning, they do expect that nothing should go wrong.
Are you a premium brand? Like when it comes to pricing?
Absolutely. So by the definition in India, for sure, it sits under premium. In our international markets, where we sit between a $150 to $200 price point on average, we sit at a bridge to premium price positioning, because there a lot of the international labels go up to $500-600. That sits under proper premium luxury.
Okay. Let's just say I went to a shop, I want to buy a frame. वो frame मेरे को typically 1000 रुपए में मिलता है, right? On an average.
Yeah.
Where would John Jacobs will come? What price?
So John Jacobs starts at 3,500, right? And we go up to 7,000. That's on the frame front. A lot of products at 3,500 are products that we launched at 3,500 4-5 years ago as well. So we continue to hold that price point very dear. And I also think it's a very nice way to get a taste of the brand, because if on an average in the market, if you spend 2,500, then to spend 3,500 on John Jacobs is not a big bridge.
Yeah.
Simply because we also have a buy one get one pricing policy with the loyalty program.
Yeah.
So if you really think per piece,
it's 1,700
price
only. Yeah.
is much lower. Yes. So,
correct.
So the goal was always to upgrade. Originally, the goal when we originally started the business, we were a very challenger type brand, and the way we did it is we would place a product right next to some of these prominent brands, and then a customer could truly see the quality, look and feel was very strong and very similar in terms of value that they could get. And then it became the smart choice to buy that product. And then once they'd experienced us, they continued to shop from us.
Yeah.
So some of that sort of continued. Now today the goal is that as more and more customers become aspirational, then how do you get them to buy a better quality product? And the promise is that we have foolproof warranty and lifetime repairs and service and lifetime free eye checkup. Some of these pieces make it very compelling to upgrade the price that you would typically spend.
ये बहुत अच्छी आपने बात बोली that you placed your product in just right to the premium luxury kind of products, right? What else people can do? Because जब भी मैं John Jacobs के बारे में सुनता हूँ या देखता हूँ, right? For me, it's an aspiration brand. I mean, that's the kind of brand positioning I have in my mind when I look at John Jacobs. And pricing wise, I don't really find it to be a premium. ऐसा नहीं मेरे को feel होता कि यार बहुत महंगा है, right?
Correct.
It's a very normal range. Maybe for me, maybe for someone not के और के लिए हो सकता ना हो, but मेरे को normal लगता है price वो. और मेरे को feel होता है कि यार ये बहुत अच्छी positioning है. Like at not a very exorbitant price.
Yes.
You're getting a very premium, very brand high appeal positioning.
Correct.
वो placement से किया आपने या what else can people do to make their brand positioning look like that?
See, today, I think a big piece is that D2C brands, if they're trying to acquire customers directly, it's hard, right? In our case, for years, we did not actually spend any money on marketing. Till we hit almost 2 million customers, we had not spent any money on marketing.
So how did you do that? कैसे किया?
Just the channel play, really putting the product in front of consumers sort of became important. And
so the retail.
The retail, yes, play in retail became very important. And also, like if you see, and at the time, of course, when John Jacobs was there, performance marketing was the main way brands made their category or product known to customers. If you see today, you cannot forego old school brand building.
Yeah.
And that is expensive brand building. So before anybody starts investing this direction of old school, talking about your proposition, building memory for the brand, I think there's merit in getting the right product fit first, getting customers to trial the product first, and then invest in some of the heavier brand building ideas. Of course, performance marketing will continue. That's not going anywhere. But that
Can
in
you
isolation.
explain a little bit about performance marketing?
Yes,
Jisko nahi pata. Yeah.
Correct. So performance marketing originally started for online first brands, right? Where you did not necessarily sell in a large multi-brand retailer or in wholesale stores, none of that. These were businesses that would pay only when they saw some results on their investment. So originally, if you see Facebook ads, Instagram ads, a lot of ads on Google and such platforms, that's where performance marketing originally started. At the time, because it was so new and you could reach very, very targeted audiences, it was extremely efficient money for the consumer. So I could...
अब नहीं है वो.
Yes, of course, because now there are a lot of privacy-related practices. For example, Apple ने आपका phone, tracking, etc. block कर रखा है. So
Right.
you can't. It's not cheap anymore to reach the consumers. Or also same keywords पे bids बहुत ज़्यादा हो जाते हैं. Right? तो performance marketing का सबसे खासियत ये होती थी कि पहले मैं बोल सकती थी कि ये मेरा age group है target. These are the other things that the customer likes. For example, premium customer, very simple. They like premium vacation, premium cars, premium watches, premium brands that they're following. I could create that criteria and I could target them very specifically. So if I'm a premium consumer, then I continue to see brands and products that are of my preference. So I'm not bombarded with 1,000 products which are not relevant. So for the consumer also it was good because you were shown the products that you were interested in. And for the brands it was good that it could find the consumers that it needed. Today that's more and more challenging because there are thousands of more brands. COVID के वजह से बहुत सारे D2C brands आए थे और बहुत competition उसमें है. So it's slightly less efficient from a money point of view and also उसकी novelty थोड़ी सी खत्म हो गई है. And so जो brands बहुत लंबे समय से marketing में invest कर रहे थे वो brands में वापस traction दिख रहा है. And that is something that I think young brands will also have to start investing in.
तो would that be fair to say कि अगर आपको एक long lasting brand बनाना है with some values associated with the brand.
Yes.
You can't just rely on performance marketing.
Yes, because in performance, it's very hard to show what your brand truly stands for. I will show you the product. I will show you very quick. It's quick, short attention based product.
It's just transactional.
It's transactional, 100%. That's really a challenge. Even within performance, to make your ad stand out from competition today is not cheap from a content creation point of view as well. So definitely a balancing act now for both.
So how do you reach out to consumers now then? What are your channels?
So like I mentioned in John Jacobs, we actually started doing marketing spending only little over 2 years ago. That's really been that. And even then we really decided to invest our money in things that you could not fully see the results in a very short period of time.
Example?
So then, for example, doing brand films, using more traditional ways, traditional platforms to showcase your content, but not doing traditional content. Let me give you an example. So I would do a brand film, which is very unusual from a regular brand film. I'm not telling you the features and benefits of my product. I'm sharing with you the
By brand
feeling.
film, you mean ad?
Like an ad, yes.
Yeah.
Right?
TV commercial.
Like a TV commercial. But instead of doing on TV, we'd probably go on OTT. Still use YouTube and some of those long form spaces. I would probably put an ad on some of the social platforms, but not with the intention of you buying anything just yet. With the intention of you registering. And then I will take that ad and I'll take it to an influencer marketing context where I'm like, okay, these are 10 friends of the brand. They each stand for something that my brand also stands for. So they have shared values or shared personalities. So then we'll market with that. Then I will take that ad on my marketplaces, on my retail channels. I will, on the televisions or on the apps that the platform is running, some of that. And so it's basically, you can't just show the customer the ad one time and leave them. That ad really has to have multiple ways of connecting, and that's why I think it cannot just be short term, right? And then in our case, for example, our ad was called Stay Seen. So now Stay Seen is going to be a platform where we also showcase other personalities, other people, and it's really, the focus is really not just buy the glasses, and it wasn't the focus of the ad. Even when we did that, it was really the feeling of what the brand needs to stand for. The reason why it's tough is because you cannot predict the results of the feeling that you want the customer to get instilled with, right? And and behavioral economics and consumer behavior is difficult to fully predict. But you can, but if you're in a cluttered space, right? Like eyewear has always been using the entire price, choice, some of those things that you can't play. Now we can no longer play on price or choice, and it doesn't matter that we launch 1,000 new products every year. It's no longer unique to the brand. And does the customer care that I make 1,000 glasses a year? Maybe not, right? Because glasses ultimately will buy once or 2 or 3 times at best in a year. Right? It's not like a short-term trend that, okay, everybody's wearing cowboy boots, I need to buy it now. No,
Yeah.
it's not going to happen. For us, the goal is that whenever you want to buy a pair of glasses, John Jacobs is your first preference. And that can happen 1 year from now. But do you remember me 1 year from now? So some of the metrics of success today would be brand desirability, brand awareness, and some of those more softer aspects. And within your existing customers, what is a net promoter score? So some of those which used to not make it, right? Earlier it would just be top line, margins. Today we also have an expanded vocabulary of how we test the desirability of our brand.
Okay. कुछ examples दे सकते हो इस in ads के, like how do you influencers की आपने बात की, these are the 10 friends that share the same values.
Yeah.
Give us some examples of the kind of ads, the kind of influencer campaigns you did.
So I'll talk about the most recent one. So we launched a turban-compatible pair of glasses.
Yeah.
It came from the consumer insight that a lot of our product temples, the part that is the stick that goes behind your ear, is not compatible
With turbans,
with
yeah.
turbans, right? And this was our and of course between Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, to some extent Uttarakhand, Himachal, and Maharashtra markets where there are strong pockets of Sikh communities, we also have a strong share of market there. So we wanted to service this market uniquely. So we launched actually a very technical product, which is compatible with, you can put it inside your turban. That was the original idea. Now there are 2 ways to do it, right? One, we could have gone and done a very, very technical ad, which is not what we did. What we did was we sponsored a hip-hop artist called Mr. Prabdeep, and we did a video film with him, right? And in that film, all the artists in that film are just wearing, and they're all wearing turbans, but they're also wearing the John Jacobs glasses, right? There is no place where we are, placing our logos very prominently. It doesn't feel like an ad. It is a music video.
Okay.
It is coming from, it is designed to make the music beautiful, right? And you just happen to see everyone in those glasses, right? And only the end slate will talk about the fact that the brand has sort of made that video. And that is long term today, okay? And it makes a huge difference. How will I track whether it was effective or not? Maybe 3 months later, I'll say, okay, did my share of revenue go up? What is my positioning in the market? Maybe, am I number 1? Can I be number 1? Can I do more of this and be number 1? Some of that. I'll give you another example. We did something with Masaba. We launched a collection with her, and at the time, and there are multiple aspects of that relationship. She stands for something that we deeply value as a business, right? She stands for a strong, independent woman. She has a strong sense of design, love for art, love for creativity, and we value those things as a business. And that's why for us, partnering with someone like her made sense, because it translates onto the work that the brand puts out and the products that the brand puts out. And so some of these partnerships will make sense. Of course, these are more glamorous partnerships, right? And these are bigger names too. And of course, the commercials on these look different. But also there are lots of extremely influential content creators, people who have strong entrenched communities, which can also be, very good for the business, right?
How do you evaluate them? ये जो छोटे micro influencers होते हैं.
Yes.
How do you figure out कि ये 10 influencers हमारे relevant audience को touch कर रहे हैं?
If your relevant audience is a niche, then it's much easier, right? So if I might say that, okay, I want to go after, say, a specific sports-oriented eyewear, or I want to go after comfort wearers, I want to go after gamers, or I want to go after kids, or some of these. So then you have very specific, so then it becomes very, I think today's brands should start with a niche, because there's a lot of money to be made in niches. Large brands may or may not be interested in filling those niches, or the brand already has a certain style which does not fit that niche, right? So let me give, as an example, in gaming is massive as an industry also in India as well. I learned very recently that also 25% of the gamers are actually women. So it's not like it's purely a men's bastion or a boys' bastion. A lot of opportunity there. And then I'd find maybe a lot of these, and in gaming, for example, there are YouTubers that review games, or they play games and people are following them along.
Yeah.
To my mind, everybody's an eyewear customer. Let me give you an example. You are looking at a mobile screen or a laptop screen. Everybody that is actively looking at that is a consumer. So then I might just choose them to wear my glasses and be gaming. That would probably be one interesting way to reach out. There are also influencers who do cosplay, etc. from gaming, or they will review, or they will be tracked by like the Tencents and the large companies of the world to launch their games. So then again, those become important. They also do events. So gaming is massive, and I would like to do it that way. If you're going after, say, sports, then if you have a specific niche, then you can find key personnel in that sports, and it's not just like superstar figures there. There are lots of upcoming, aspiring people with small communities. So of course, because there are small communities, the costs to the brands will potentially be lower, but it's the right audience, that you're supporting the right people as a brand, and their audience sees value in that partnership.
Right. आपने एक बीच में ना इंटरेस्टिंग चीज़ बोली दैट सिख कम्युनिटी के लिए यू लॉन्च्ड अ प्रोडक्ट, राइट? गेमिंग के लिए भी कुछ और हो सकता है, फॉर वुमेन स्पेसिफिकली इनटू स्पोर्ट्स इट कुड बी समथिंग एल्स. Now, so I was talking to another founder on the podcast, and he was telling me that they launched hoodies, right? And I was asking him, what's the right way to launch a hoodie brand? On the same kind of principle that you were telling me, he suggested कि यार आप ऐसा मत करो कि बस आपने एक hoodie का brand launch कर दिया, right?
Yeah.
There are many hoodie companies already out there. Why will anyone buy your hoodie, right? So rather than that, your hoodie ideally should solve a problem. For example, अगर कोई traveler है, right? They wear a hoodie, but that hoodie is specifically suited for travel community.
Yes.
कि उनको चार्जिंग करनी होती है,
Correct.
उनको कुछ बैकपैक कैरी करना होता है, maybe they need a waterproof jacket also attached to it. So when you look at that technical aspect,
Yes.
and evaluate the problem of that particular community, the niche that you're referring to, then you can market it better,
Yes.
communicate it better,
Yes.
and even price it better.
Absolutely.
I think that's what you did with the Sikh particular community, जो आपने Sikh turban के लिए जो product launch किया है. But I wanted to understand even more from you now. How do you evaluate these gaps? वो figure out कैसे करते हो कि यार ये market में gap है, वो मुझे अब solve करना है.
Specifically to eyewear, you want to know?
Yeah.
Right? See, if you see the eyewear industry by itself, I'll talk a little bit about the industry. I think it's very interesting because it's so unique. It is an oligopoly. So by oligopoly, it means कि 3 global players हैं, 2 actually mainly, जो almost 80% organized market control करते हैं.
Yeah.
And by control, I mean वो price control करेंगे, raw material control करेंगे, कहाँ पे available होगा control करेंगे, retailer क्या margin बनाता है वो सब control करेंगे, right? That's the nature of the market. फिर इसमें एक 20% independent brands का market है, जिसमें हमारे जैसे brands exist करते हैं, जो इसको change करना चाहते हैं. In India तो वो 20% भी नहीं है, because in India I still think 80% market is unorganized, only 20% is organized, and within that
80%
only
is them.
30% is premium.
Yeah.
Right? So in India it's even smaller. Now the reality is that the unorganized market cannot fill these niches. The very large global businesses will not want to fill these niches because it's not profitable, right?
It's a very small number for them.
It's a very small number. The opportunity cost of putting resources into filling such a small niche is also very high. तो वो नहीं करना चाहेंगे वो. मेरे हिसाब से niches आते हैं trend study करने से और trend अपनी industry से बाहर study करने से, right? What is changing globally? For example, हमारी industry में it's still a low innovation industry, I would say. I think the only innovation that we had was the Snap glasses and the Google lens and the Meta lens, right? But उसमें भी अगर आप देखेंगे तो वो practical नहीं है. Like, what is the penetration of that? It's not, right? Eventually, that will be definitely something to focus on.
But not now.
See, in that, if you want to be the tech player behind it, yes, I think there's an interesting opportunity. Do you want to be the hardware person in that? Maybe not. Not yet. It's not mass enough. It's not profitable enough to be just the hardware within that. But definitely to be the software and the AI technology aspect for eyewear, they're interesting. Definitely a space to explore. Then you come lifestyle segments, and that lifestyle segments could be changing consumption patterns. Let me give you an example. In India, golf became like very important because of COVID mostly, I think people, and so then you started seeing specialist golfing stores, specialist golfing equipment, more golf courses came up, more clubs came up, right? These are all positioned extremely premium. So even if you don't have mass, your per piece margins will be very, very good. So then that would be a territory that one can go after. And then you also have like a captive audience. So you might say, I'm going to do sports glasses for golf and I'm going to sell out of golf retailers. I will not try to D2C this. Simply because it's just too expensive to find such a small niche, right? But like on Golf Course Road, for example, there are 2 golfing stores in Gurgaon, right? So then I will probably go to both of them and I'll be like, these are my glasses. Kids were using a lot of digital screens, so kids was a very important segment. I also helped, do a lot of market research on what the kids' business would be. So that was a massive opportunity. And like, I think every kid would need glasses at some point, either the screen protect ones or the glasses, or they have hobbies that they would have, swimming and so on and so forth. So these come from macro trends on what is happening. India also is becoming a more our consumption is very low of many discretionary spending. But once you start having more discretionary spending, more niches will start opening up, right? Like for example, globally biking is very important. In India, it's not so big because we don't have biking lanes, we don't have infrastructure. But as more and more that would come in, probably that will be important. Today, cricket, of course, is massive. So I would still look at some of these segments. So macro trends on where can I fit a product if an industry already exists, or what is an industry or what is a lifestyle segment that's opening up where I can partner.
Okay, but very interesting. I wanted to talk about pricing also. Abhi aapne golf ka example liya, right? Let's talk about these 2 examples: golf versus the eyewear that you launched for the Sikh community. Okay. We by default, by definition, know that golf is an expensive sport, right? Not everybody, as you said, it's a niche sport, right? Not everybody would be okay or willing to spend that much of money in buying the equipment, all of that. It's costly compared to a cricket bat. Now, when you're launching eyewear specifically designed for, let's say, golf community, by default, do you also look at कि यार ये sport में पैसा already ज़्यादा है, तो we can make more margins and make more money compared to a Sikh community turban wear?
Yeah.
So ऐसा how do you price your product? Do you look at these things also?
I think pricing the consumer sort of decides, right? You can price your product, but if the customer rejects that price point, then you can do nothing about it.
So how do you figure out they are rejecting it?
So, simple experiment. Let's say you launched a product at 5,000, but the perceived value, customer को लगता है कि इसकी value 3,000 से ज़्यादा नहीं होनी चाहिए. तो आप 5,000 पे आपने, for example, 10 पीस बेचे. फिर then आपने उस पर डिस्काउंट लगा दिया, कूपन लगा दिया, and then it became 3,500 या जो भी 3,000, something is what customers are willing to buy. So that price point पे अगर आपकी demand pick होती है, so you know that for the customer's perception, that is really that price point. Really, and उसमें फिर आपको decide करना है कि आप higher price point पे low demand पे operate करना चाहेंगे कि आप that आप उसको marginal utility of that price होता है, that curve will start picking up. तो वो demand, आप वो demand पे fulfill करना चाहते हैं कि नहीं. I do think the market sets the price always. That's why, and you will see a lot of brands that just suddenly अपना price बढ़ा देते, they get penalized. Why? Because there will always be someone who will be willing to do the price play. And I think customers are very smart. So they want to pay the price that they think is right for the brand. So या तो आपके brand में इतनी value है कि वो price justified है. That will be one. So that is one. The brand perception and pricing is of course deeply interlinked, and you can't separate that. Second is if you're selling, let's say, to a premium audience, then you will also make sure your product is premium. So by default you can price it better. अगर आप premium audience में एक value product बनाने की कोशिश करें तो वो fit ही गलत है. Right? So golf वाला logic basically यही है कि उसमें आप lens भी, you will put a very high quality lens because आप उसमें उस कस्टमर को बेच रहे हो जिसको ऑलरेडी क्वालिटी की आदत है, जिसको ऑलरेडी वो उस स्पोर्ट को ने बजट किया हुआ है कि मैं महीने में इतने पैसे खर्चूंगा गोल्फ कोर्स पे जाके, क्लब्स खरीदने हैं, व्हाटएवर सर्विसेज आई वांट टू बाय अलोंग विद दैट, और क्लोथिंग, अपैरल एक्सेट्रा. सो गुड वे इज दैट अगर आप एक पेरिफेरल कैटेगरी है, जैसे गोल्फ में आईवेयर विल बी अ पेरिफेरल कैटेगरी, या एक, तो आप उसमें आप मार्केट की सेटिंग उस लीडिंग कैटेगरी से करेंगे. right? Like you said, bat versus a golf club, or a clothing that golf customers are wearing versus cricket jerseys का क्या
Correct.
price difference है, तो उतना आप margin build कर सकते हैं. But उसमें आपको customer को वो product भी उस value का देना पड़ेगा कि वो आपको उतने पैसे देना चाहिए. Because that market, otherwise the customer will punish you. And I've always seen that जो brands जबरदस्ती बहुत discount पे बेचना पड़ जाता है उनको, that is because the customer is punishing you for pricing it wrong.
अभी आपने एक बात बोली कि फॉर एग्जांपल यू लॉन्च्ड अ प्रोडक्ट एट 5000 बट देन यू गेव अ डिस्काउंट एंड द प्राइस केम टू 3500.
Yeah.
दैट वाज द परसीव्ड प्राइस फॉर द कस्टमर.
Yeah.
उस पे ज़्यादा सेल पिकअप होने लग गई. नाउ डू यू नाउ रिवाइज योर प्राइस टू 3500 बाय डिफॉल्ट रादर देन गिविंग अ डिस्काउंट एवरी टाइम टू द कस्टमर फॉर देम टू बाय इट एट 3500? व्हाट इज बेटर?
Honestly, it depends on the trends. I think, see, if it's a very online-driven brand, I think a lot of the large marketplaces have made the customer very used to sale in general. So there maybe the customer does prefer that you already build a markup and then give them a discounted price, and that discounted price
Psychologically, they feel they're getting a discount.
Yes. So see, there are two truths, right? One is that the consumer is scared more of losing value than they are of gaining value. So typically, if you make limited time offers, etc., then the fact that they lose that benefit makes a big impact on how customers shop. If you're very, very retail, offline driven, where sale is not so important a criteria, then maybe I would think of repricing the product. So that psychological, again, I think it depends on, and there are many ways to do some of these price experimentations, but the biggest one would be that am I doing discounting and couponing because the ecosystem is like that it forces me to do that discount, or is it because my product is priced wrong?
But does that devalue your product if you're doing discounts? Like the positioning is premium.
Yeah.
Like you will not see a Audi, for example,
Yes.
giving you discounts that
Yeah.
much versus a Hyundai or
Yes.
So because the positioning is such a way that Audi is a premium brand, they
Yeah.
don't really do discounts.
Yeah.
So do you also look at कि डिस्काउंट देंगे तो थोड़ा प्रीमियमनेस का जो एक फील है, वो जो अपीयरेंस है, जो पोजीशनिंग है, वो खराब होती है?
So my point of view on this is that चश्मा तो आपके फेस पे यार 15 घंटे रहता है ना. तो मुझे ये लगता है कि कस्टमर को अल्टीमेटली अगर प्रोडक्ट अच्छा लगा हो, प्राइस ठीक लगा, तो अगर फुल प्राइस पे भी then they will buy. And we typically find that in John Jacobs, for example, we only sell 2 or 3% of our business beyond on extra discount in the full year. And I think the reason for that is फर्स्टली हम बहुत न्यू लॉन्चेस करते हैं, तो वो फास्ट मूव करता है प्रोडक्ट बहुत ज़्यादा, और उसमें भी हम जो लॉन्च कर रहे हैं वो कस्टमर को ये लग रहा है ना कि मैं अगर अपने फेस पे पहनने वाला हूँ, फुल टाइम वो अगर रहने वाला है, तो देन उसमें आई वांट टू बाय द बेस्ट दैट आई कैन अफोर्ड, बिकॉज उससे लुक एंड फील आपके पूरे चेहरे की बदल जाती है.
करेक्ट. ना उसके अंदर ना मुझे बात करनी है अब रिटेल की, राइट? We haven't even got a chance to touch upon that.
Yes.
So let's talk about that now. So primary channels for you currently, positioning की बात करें या sales की भी बात करें, that's retail for you, right? So if I want to start a retail brand, like eyewear retail brand,
yes,
what sort of investments I should ideally be thinking of? कितना पैसा लगेगा मुझे, क्या क्या लाइसेंस लेने पड़ेंगे मुझे, and what sort of supply chain or logistics will happen to that?
Yeah, so there are multiple ways to do retail actually. The one, and obviously a lot of Indian brands are preferring, not just in eyewear, to go is open your own stores, right? It's not cheap, definitely not cheap, because you need to find the right real estate. There are very limited malls in the country, very limited cities where premium real estate is available, and ये बहुत ही mass positioning में शायद आपका real estate profitable भी ना हो, right? तो आपको churn करते रहना है अपना product. तो I think the starting point should always be कि आप अपना online business start कीजिए और wholesale retailers ढूंढिए, and आप उसमें traction देखिए, because online and marketplace पे देखिए. तो
what are wholesale retailers?
These are other multi-brand optical shops.
Okay.
Right, and like I said, 85% business is still with them, and many of them sell brands also, and some of them also sell local brands. So that's a good place to test, I think, your product, and then also to get a sense of, okay, will I start in a tier 1 city, will I start in a tier 2 city, will I start in, and within that will my first market be, say, a Delhi, or will it be Bangalore? All of those insights, you get some understanding of customer preference from the data that you will collect from selling online, selling on some of the existing marketplaces. And this, I think, without investment, this would be the first leg. Also, the current funding ecosystem is such that pure play retail में नहीं आ रहा पैसा. वो reality है.
omni channel में ही है.
हाँ, omni channel मतलब tech supported.
Correct.
For sure. And उसमें भी अभी pure play retail करना भी बहुत like 100% today, because there is obviously businesses like Lenskart in the ecosystem. तो आप compete इस level से कर रहे हैं जहाँ पे already बहुत ज़्यादा technology interventions है. So that's why I think pure play retail may not be the best place. So maybe starting in a way that आपका discovery online हो, and maybe an enough number of wholesale में आपकी presence हो जिसमें आपकी continue कर सके customer brand में. और चश्मे में unfortunately retail की ज़रूरत इसलिए है क्योंकि even with the best tools, the customer confidence is most only in offline. So even within John Jacobs, for example, lot of discovery is happening on social media, on website. People are trying these 3D try-on tools, but most customers finish the purchase only in the store.
But just out of curiosity, how many people who visit your website
Yes.
and try to buy?
Yes.
Out of them, how many try this 3D thing?
So today, almost 60% customers do have 3D try-on profiles.
60%?
Yes. Because
that's a huge number.
It is, because we also give them the opportunity to keep that 3D try-on on. So every frame then shows on your face. And if it's too small or too big, then you don't need to see it. And then we also create a customization. Is that अगर आप उस customization का नाम, आप for you का एक selection button होता है. अगर आप for you करेंगे तो अगर आपका face से medium size का है तो आपको medium size glasses ही दिखेंगे.
अच्छा.
So जो purchase journey है उसमें आपको confusion कम हो जाता है. And then also we have like assisted selling, जिसमें हमारे stylists आपको call करके समझा सकते हैं आपके face के लिए क्या suitable है, co-browse कर सकते हैं कि आपको choose करने में help करेंगे. Some of those. But at the end of the day, it is a technical product. तो उसमें कभी-कभी आपका prescription lens frame के साथ match करता है कि नहीं. So बहुत complex prescriptions के लिए customers चाहते हैं कि वो store जाए.
Do you also look at historical data of the purchases of the customer and automatically recommend them not just frame but the 3D model of it?
So every frame has a 3D model, right? And every frame आपने अगर अपना 3D try on कर रखा है तो आपके face पे वो place हो सकता है. तो वो problem नहीं है. That will happen through the whole thing. The recommendation, yes, it comes from history. तो अगर आपकी profile बनी हुई है हमारे website पे तो फिर आपको recommendation उसके हिसाब से दिखेंगे. Recommendation में of course सबसे important होता है कि आपके size के चश्मे दिखे और आपके style के चश्मे दिखे. Mostly वहाँ पे आता है. And some like interesting insight which we are building on is men, for example, like to buy the same, like in clothing, they like to do that in eyewear also. तो उनको same चश्मे के अलग-अलग colors चाहिए.
अच्छा, okay.
Throughout. तो उनको अगर बहुत ज़्यादा newness दिखा दो तो they don't like that. And women love variety. So आज cat eye खरीदा, कल round खरीदेंगे, उसके बाद aviator खरीदेंगे. Men आज rectangle खरीदा है, please keep showing me more of what I already know and understand. So some of that nuances also play.
What are other insights about men versus women? ऐसा कुछ और भी trends आपको दिखे? The kind of frames men buy versus women?
Oh yes. So men will buy so especially in influence, I've noticed this a lot. If they like a personality, like our ads work very well on men, better than even on women.
Okay.
Simply because फिर वो social media ad लेके आ जाएंगे, बोलेंगे इनको जो चश्मा पहना है मुझे वो दे दो. Right? Women को convince करने में बहुत hoops jump करने पड़ते हैं, I think.
Okay.
Right? So they would want to see it on a celebrity, then on an influencer, then they want to see the ad, then they want to see उसका website पे treatment कैसा है. Men are like more relatively easier customers to persuade. So
the CAC of customer acquisition of cost of men is lower
than women, yes.
Okay.
Also in women, I think they're just bombarded by way too many fashion ads. So to stand apart from those ads also becomes definitely like
clutter
very,
is
very,
more.
Clutter is more. There are lots of like beautiful indie brands doing a lot of good work as well. So you're constantly like competing visually. Visually तो customer का वो base तो same ही है ना.
Right.
वो screen पे same ही screen पे आपको सब दिखना है. तो वो बहुत ज़रूरी है.
Correct. आपने बीच में एक बात बोली थी कि the ideal way for you to is go out on a multi-brand outlet, right?
Yes.
Now for a premium brand like John Jacobs, right? For example, एक shop है एक city में tier 1, tier 2 में जो multi-brand outlet है. It's a local shop. They sell multiple kind of brands. Would John Jacobs be keen on putting up their frames because they are a premium brand on that outlet?
So we are not actively pursuing a wholesale strategy right now at all. So for us that is sort of critical because हमें लगता है कि हम अपना end to end ब्रांड एक्सपीरियंस कंट्रोल करना चाहते हैं।
अच्छा,
तो उसमें स्टाफ कस्टमर को एग्जैक्टली क्या कम्युनिकेट करता है, हमारी जो वारंटीज और गारंटीज है ब्रांड की, वो सब रिटेलर्स नहीं ऑनर करना चाहते हैं। तो फिर दैट बिकम्स लाइक वेरी क्रिटिकल टू अस। और फिर वो पूरे जो सर्विस एलिमेंट्स है कि आई चेकअप आपका कैसे हो रहा है, प्रोडक्ट डिलीवर होने के पहले अगेन स्टोर में भी 100% QC होता है, उसमें मेकिंग श्योर देयर इज नो स्क्रैचेस, नथिंग, एवरीथिंग नीड्स टू गो अ सर्टेन वे। आई थिंक बीइंग एबल टू कंट्रोल दैट इज वेरी क्रिटिकल टू अस टुडे। So it's not something that we have explored to do
Okay.
wholesale. But also मेरे हिसाब से अगर जॉन जेकब्स जाता in some of these platforms, I think the product is strong enough to be able to convert itself, even if it does not require कि स्टाफ को बहुत ज़्यादा नॉलेज हो ब्रांड की। आई थिंक थोड़ा बहुत समझाना पड़ेगा कि इसका प्राइस पोजिशनिंग ऐसा क्यों है, मे बी दैट, बट आई डोंट थिंक that would be challenging for us.
ओके। ओवरऑल आउट ऑफ द composition of sales, अगर 100 रुपीज 100% आप सेल्स कर रहे हो, ऑनलाइन वर्सेस ऑफलाइन अभी क्या है?
15% ऑनलाइन है,
अच्छा,
बाकी 85% ऑफलाइन है, एंड ऑनलाइन ऑल्सो इंक्लूड्स अ वेरी स्मॉल परसेंटेज ऑफ मार्केट प्लेस. वी जस्ट ओपनड आवर बिजनेस टू मार्केट प्लेस ओनली अ ईयर अगो.
Okay.
But 65% of all offline purchases are influenced by online. So the customer has already done some research.
हाउ डिड यू फिगर दैट? ये नंबर आपको कहाँ से पता लगता है कि do you ask them at a point of sale?
Both between Lenskart and John Jacobs, we use the phone number as a tracking mechanism
Okay.
for the consumer journey, right? तो आप अपना आपकी प्रोफाइल्स बनी हुई है, हमारे दोनों वेबसाइट और ऐप पे बन सकती है वो प्रोफाइल्स, एंड उसके बाद अगर आप स्टोर में जाएंगे तो इवन दैट योर जर्नी स्टार्ट्स फ्रॉम द फोन. तो मुझे ऑलरेडी पता है कि आप लॉग्ड इन थे, आपने ये सब प्रोडक्ट्स देख लिए, एंड ऑल्सो विद इन द स्टोर, विद इन आवर वेबसाइट एटसेट्रा, यू कैन मेक एन अपॉइंटमेंट विद द स्टोर, यू कैन बुक some of these features, and then you know that customer came to the store. So it's online influenced offline journeys have become very, very significant.
So that is 65% out of the offline sales.
Yes.
That's a huge number.
It is. And that's why there's merit in building omni-channel, not just for the sake of online भी खरीद सकते हैं, offline भी खरीद सकते हैं, sure, वो तो कर ही सकते हैं, but उसमें भी एक कंटिन्यूटी ऑफ जर्नी है कि मैंने ऑनलाइन ही चश्मे देखे थे, मैं स्टोर में जाके बोल रही हूँ मुझे ये देखना है, या अब स्टोर में हमारे QR कोड्स लगे हुए हैं प्रोडक्ट के, देन यू कैन, अगर स्टाफ बिजी है, देन यू कैन जस्ट स्कैन द QR कोड, इट विल ओपन दैट वेबसाइट एंड यू कैन सी ऑल फीचर्स अबाउट द प्रोडक्ट, यू कैन सी द प्राइस, एवरीथिंग, ऑफर्स अवेलेबल, एवरीथिंग फ्रॉम द बिगिनिंग, सो यू आर नॉट, इट्स नॉट अ ब्रोकन जर्नी.
गॉट इट. अब ये तो आपका मेजर जो आपके स्टोर्स हैं वो कहाँ पे, कौन से सिटीज में ज़्यादा आपकी प्रेजेंस है?
सो जॉन जेकब्स बाय इटसेल्फ तो सिर्फ Tier 1 सिटीज में ही है, जो स्टैंड अलोन स्टोर्स है, क्योंकि एक्चुअली अगर आप देखेंगे इंडस्ट्री में स्टैंड अलोन और कोई ब्रांड्स है ही नहीं, ऑलमोस्ट सब जो कंपटीशन भी है वो मल्टी ब्रांड ही है. देन वी ऑल्सो हैव द बेनिफिट ऑफ कोर्स हैविंग लेंसकार्ट एज अ पेरेंट कंपनी, सो उनके 1600 पॉइंट्स ऑफ सेल है, विच इज आई थिंक
हर स्टोर में जॉन जैकब्स तो है ही,
हर स्टोर में जॉन जेकब्स है, एंड बट वो Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 सब सिटीज में है, एंड विद इन दैट 10 cities make 50% of our business, and they're not just the cosmopolitan cities, there are also some up emerging cities within that, but 10 cities are 50% of our business.
So out of the 15% जो ऑनलाइन आ रहा है आपका, अभी Tier 1 में तो आप मेजर कर लेते हो कि ये जो लोग हैं ये आए हैं थ्रू इन्फ्लुएंस थ्रू दी ऑनलाइन, राइट? What about Tier 2 and Tier 3? When there are no John Jacobs stores out there, वहाँ पे जो मेजरमेंट है वो तो सिर्फ लेंसकार्ट स्टोर्स पे ही होती है?
सिर्फ लेंसकार्ट स्टोर्स पे. तो वहाँ पे हम 2-3 चीज़ें देखते हैं. एक तो है शेयर ऑफ रेवेन्यू विद इन द बिजनेस, राइट? एंड उसमें देखो बहुत अल्टीमेटली कस्टमर ही डिसीजन मेकर है, तो इवन इफ माई स्टाफ विल इन्फ्लुएंस, एट द एंड ऑफ द डे कस्टमर हैज टू मेक दैट डिसीजन, एंड दैट्स व्हाई, लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल, वी आर वेरी वेरी amused sometimes to see the data, but cities like Jammu, Jamshedpur, Trichy, some of these, Dehradun, ये सब में भी 40% business of Lenskart will come from John Jacobs. So there is lot of demand and desire to consume a premium product and a premium brand, as long as उसके quality, like I said, वो quality price product सही बना दोगे तो और and of course Lenskart offers very very superior customer service, so then product सही है, service सही है, price सही है, the customer is buying. So there we don't actively need to have our own store for the customer to know, and once they have bought तो उनकी loyalty रह जाती है फिर brand के साथ कि मैंने last time खरीदा था, बहुत अच्छा चला, आज मैंने खरीदा, कल मम्मी पापा को ले जाएंगे या अपने पार्टनर को ले जाएंगे, some of those. And if we later launch kids, for example, as a category, then it might be that, you know, my child also should buy my brand, this brand.
But which all cities, आपने 2 cities का तो नाम लिया.
Yes.
Which all other cities are there जहाँ पे आप देख रहे हो कि डिमांड जॉन जैकब्स की प्रीमियम आईवेयर कैटेगरी की डिमांड बढ़ रही है, और आपको कुछ इंटरेस्टिंग ट्रेंड्स दिखे उसको बैकअप करने के लिए? देहरादून का आपने नाम लिया.
Yes.
बट व्हाई देहरादून? व्हाई नॉट समथिंग एल्स? व्हाई नॉट अयोध्या? यू नो क्या ऐसा इंसाइट मिला कि यार देहरादून में इस वजह से डिमांड बढ़ रही है प्रीमियम आईवेयर की?
So, 2-3 things, right? So, मैं एक्चुअली स्पेसिफिक सिटीज में नहीं जाऊंगी, मैं टियर 2 इन जनरल का बिहेवियरली आपको बताऊंगी क्या है. तो जैसे साउथ बिहेव्स लाइक अ कम्प्लीटली डिफरेंट एंटिटी, बट अगर आप देखेंगे नॉर्थ और ईस्ट काफ़ी सिमिलरली बिहेव करते हैं एंड वेस्ट एंड साउथ काफ़ी सिमिलरली बिहेव करते हैं. तो नॉर्थ और ईस्ट में टियर 2 और टियर 3 में भी फैशन कंजम्पशन बहुत है. उनको चाहिए कि अगर किसी फेमस पर्सन ने उसको पहना है, या बॉलीवुड इन्फ्लुएंस भी काफ़ी ज़्यादा है, तो बॉलीवुड के थ्रू आप काफ़ी इन्फ्लुएंस कर सकते हैं, फेमस पीपल के थ्रू काफ़ी इन्फ्लुएंस कर सकते हैं. और अगर एडवर्टाइजिंग की, अगर आपने जैसे बोला हमारी लुक एंड फील थोड़ी प्रीमियम है, तो that alone makes a big difference on the positioning of the brand. In the South, जो साउथ की लोकल ब्रांड्स है उनकी काफ़ी स्ट्रॉन्ग होल्ड होती है मार्केट में, बिकॉज ऑफ विच यू आर कम्पीटिंग विद मोर मॉम एंड पॉप टाइप सेटअप्स, राइट. इट हेल्प्स कि वहाँ पे हमारा फुटप्रिंट बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग है, क्योंकि फॉर एग्जाम्पल लेंसकार्ट अलोन के 110 स्टोर है बैंगलोर में, राइट. और अगर आप देखें तमिलनाडु में 100 स्टोर के ऊपर है, तेलंगाना में 100 स्टोर के ऊपर है, केरला में 100 स्टोर के ऊपर है. तो फुटप्रिंट बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग है, ब्रांड की अवेयरनेस स्ट्रॉन्ग है. बट उसमें कस्टमर, हमें ज़्यादा मेहनत करनी पड़ती है कि कस्टमर को प्रोडक्ट की वैल्यू दिखे. उसमें सिर्फ एडवर्टाइजिंग या सिर्फ परसेप्शन पे नहीं चलेगा. तो वो कस्टमर को फुल वैल्यू चाहिए अपने प्रोडक्ट के लिए. तो वहाँ पे हमारा बहुत सर्विस फोकस्ड होता है, दैट आपका बाइंग एक्सपीरियंस बहुत सुपीरियर रहे, बिकॉज प्रोडक्ट की हमें गारंटी, हम आपको गारंटी दे रहे हैं प्रोडक्ट इज नॉट अ प्रॉब्लम, यू हैव रिटर्न्स, वारंटी or lifetime service, so no problem there. But getting that customer to commit to that product is more work. Also, अगर आप देखेंगे वो बहुत interesting है. अगर ethnicities, India is obviously such a big boiling this, so the face structure of customers is very different, right? So for example, जो Dravidian origin के customer है, उनका फेस स्ट्रक्चर आर्यन ओरिजिन के कस्टमर से बहुत डिफरेंस है. सो वी डू अ लॉट ऑफ स्टडी ऑफ दैट एज वेल, कि आपका स्कल साइज क्या है वर्सेस आपका फ्रंट साइज क्या है, कितना लंबा टेम्पल होना चाहिए. दैट मेक्स अ बिग डिफरेंस ऑल्सो. वी हैव ऑल्सो सीन सम ऑफ दैट. सो एंड मोर स्पेशलाइजेशन हम अपने लार्ज मार्केट्स के लिए इसलिए करना चाहते हैं, क्योंकि अल्टीमेटली फेस अनलाइक बॉडी इज नॉट सुपर स्टैंडर्डाइज्ड, राइट. तो अपैरल कंपनीज ने तो SML XL टाइप करके चीज़ें काफ़ी स्टैंडर्डाइज करने की कोशिश की है. हमने भी आईवेयर में साइजेस इंट्रोड्यूस किए थे इनफैक्ट. हमारे वी ऑल्सो रन साइजेस लाइक एक्स्ट्रा नैरो, मीडियम, वाइड, एक्स्ट्रा वाइड, थिंग्स लाइक दैट. एंड ट्राइंग टू टीच कस्टमर्स कि आप शॉपिंग भी ऐसे कीजिए. आपका फेस साइज मीडियम है तो आप मीडियम चश्मे खरीदिए. सो
बट वो चला
it's a larger educational exercise and you don't always get the sizes 100% right. ऐसा हमने जो सीख वाला जो रेंज लॉन्च किया उसमें एक और चीज़ हमने की थी, हमने साइजेस काफ़ी वाइड बनाए, सबसे बड़े फ्रेम्स हमने उसमें बनाए, क्योंकि हमारा कस्टमर फीडबैक आया था कि आपने हमारे साइज के लिए कुछ बनाया नहीं है, राइट. और वो साउथ में उसका मैं ऑलमोस्ट लाइक 3 सेंटीमीटर कम बेचूंगी. That makes a big difference, right? And also, what is a prescription type? It's a technical product, so some of those things make a big difference. Sunglasses are relatively easy.
Correct.
So that's why a lot of brands start with sunglasses first, not a technical product. In comparison to eyeglasses, क्योंकि आपको लेंस के हिसाब से हाइट फिक्स करनी होती है, विड्थ फिक्स करना होता है, पढ़ने के टाइम कैसे दिखेंगे चश्मे वो देखना पड़ता है. So it is some of those design aspects are important to control.
Correct. I have 3-4 questions more.
Please.
But बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग चीज़ें पूछनी है मुझे आपसे. आपने बीच में एक बात बोली कि जो कस्टमर को एक्सपीरियंस मिल रहा है इन स्टोर एंड द काइंड ऑफ सर्विस दे आर गेटिंग, दैट आल्सो इन्फ्लुएंस व्हाट फ्रेम दे आर गोइंग टू बाय, व्हाट ब्रांड दे आर गोइंग टू बाय, ऑफ कोर्स, राइट. अब जहाँ पे जॉन जैकब्स का खुद का स्टोर है वहाँ तो वो जॉन जैकब्स ही लेने जा रहे हैं, राइट. बट जहाँ पे लेंसकार्ट के स्टोर में जाते हैं वो, राइट, वहाँ पे ऑब्वियसली यू हैव John Jacobs as a outlet within the store,
yes,
right. अब बट जो लेंसकार्ट का जो सर्विस प्रोफेशनल है वहाँ पे, वो तो पूरी ही सर्विस अपनी तरीके से सब ब्रांड्स के लिए हर एक प्रोडक्ट के लिए अच्छी देने की कोशिश करेगा, राइट. वो तो नहीं चाहेगा ना कि मैं जॉन जैकब्स की सर्विस या उसके बारे में ज़्यादा अच्छे से बात करूँ, बाकी प्रोडक्ट की इतनी कम बात करूँ, क्योंकि वो प्रीमियम है तो मैं ज़्यादा अटेंशन दूंगा. ऐसा तो होता नहीं है. आई हैव नॉट सीन इट हैपनिंग, एंड आई एम श्योर योर ब्रांड एथॉस डज नॉट रियली से दैट, राइट. अब वहाँ पे क्या इन्फ्लुएंस किया जा सकता है उसको कि वो जॉन जैकब्स ले?
देखो, जहाँ पे एनी मल्टी ब्रांड या जहाँ शॉप इन शॉप सेटअप में आप कर रहे हैं, शेल्फ अपील बोलते हैं या फ्लोर अपील जो है वो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है प्रोडक्ट की, ठीक है. तो आपका प्रोडक्ट का लुक एंड फील आपके स्टोर में कैसा है वो बहुत ज़रूरी है. इन स्टोर कम्युनिकेशन बहुत ज़रूरी है कि मैंने आपकी क्या ब्रांडिंग कर रखी है स्टोर में, क्या मैं ब्रांड के बारे में क्या स्टोरी टेलिंग स्टोर के माध्यम के थ्रू कर रही हूँ, वो बहुत ज़रूरी है. बिकॉज अल्टीमेटली ये परसेप्शन ड्राइव करने के लिए बहुत चीज़ें चेंज करता है, राइट? फिर आपके जैसे हमारे केस में जॉन जेकब्स के जो शेल्व्स है वो थोड़े और प्रीमियम लुकिंग भी है.
अच्छा.
As compared to the label
The other
products that are
ones,
not
yeah.
at that price point, right? So that is also an attempt कि हम differentiate कर सके customer के लिए वो. और फिर for example हम काफ़ी specialist materials और ये सब करते हैं, जैसे titanium और कोई brand नहीं करता. In fact in the market also there are only 1 or 2 brands that do titanium as a material. हमारा Italian acetate है versus regular acetate, वो communication. तो customer को ultimately आपको customer को choice देनी है. And you have to leave that to that customer's decision making. And a lot of customers, of course, common sense will ask कि इस product और इस product में difference क्या है. अगर उनको brand के बारे में enough नहीं पता, तो वो आप उनको ये features बताओगे कि इसमें हम German hinges डालते हैं, Italian acetate है, आपको quality का कोई issue नहीं आएगा. Customer satisfaction score is very very good on the brand and some of those things. And आपको 2 साल तक भी frame को कुछ नहीं होगा. Some of those conversations you can have. Then you leave it to the customer. Ultimately, अगर उसको if they have a budget constraint, then no matter what you say about the brand, they will not buy that.
Yeah, correct. There are so many of frames brands out there in the world, right? Including John Jacobs.
Yes.
Lens का कोई नाम नहीं हमें पता आज तक. मतलब you can't register a brand that specifically talks about lenses, right? Within the overall eyewear category.
Yeah.
ऐसा क्यों है? Why is that? And are you guys planning to focus on that category also?
Yes. So again, I'll actually come back to the industry aspect where I told you that whole oligopoly है market में, lens में भी exactly वही है. तो lens में until very recently सिर्फ 3-4 ही key brands है. The biggest is of course Essilor and Zeiss. These are the biggest brands. और उसके बाद ऐसे like we sell Rodenstock which is German and Tokai which is Japanese. बहुत limited ये brands है. Mostly because again the industry structure is such that वो कंसोलिडेट होते गए और उसके बाद जो मेन प्लेयर्स है वो बहुत बड़े हैं, राइट? और उनका बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन है मार्केट में. तो अगर आप कहीं भी जाएंगे, छोटे से छोटे रिटेलर के पास भी जाएंगे, उनके लेंसेज आपको मिलेंगे और उसकी वजह से ब्रांड वो बन गया. दूसरा जो है वो है लोकल ब्रांड्स. वो नो नेम है, वो हर रिटेलर के पास वो है, वो बिटवीन इंडिया एंड चाइना दोनों जगह से वो प्रोक्योर कर सकते हैं. उसमें कोई वो नो नेम है, राइट? Until recently लेंस के बारे में एक्चुअली रिटेलर भी नहीं बात करता था ज़्यादा, या हम कस्टमर को एजुकेट भी नहीं करना चाहते थे. पर उसके बाद रिसेंटली फॉर एग्जांपल ब्लू प्रोटेक्ट हो गया, इंडेक्सेस हो गए कि पतला लेंस, आपके हाई प्रिस्क्रिप्शन में पतला लेंस डालिए, कोटिंग्स हो गई, एंटी ग्लेयर, एंटी स्क्रैच रेजिस्टेंट, नाइट resistant, अभी infrared coatings भी आ गई है for sleeping, things like that. So customer को educate जब करने लग गए तो demand आने लगी कि हमें lenses में भी ज़्यादा standardization चाहिए. So for us, we are of course a frame brand and we use the lenses that हमारे parent company के through आ रहे हैं. So then हमारे Rodenstock and Tokai are the German and Japanese partners that we have, and then we have Owndays, which we launched recently, Owndays lenses. So that's our first attempt at our own brand partnership, and then there will be more focuses on building brand IPs within lenses.
Dead stock की problem रहती है?
So eyewear में एक तो advantage ज़रूर है कि product की longevity है खुद भी, and trend इतना trend based नहीं है. तो dead stock बहुत fast trend changing industries में ज़्यादा risk होता है, तो उसमें आपको फोरकास्ट भी बेटर करना पड़ता है. और हमारे केस में हम लोग बहुत ऑटोमेशन टूल्स यूज करते हैं टू प्रिडिक्ट, टू फोरकास्ट आवर डिमांड. सो दैट्स व्हाई डेड स्टॉक इज रिलेटिवली नॉट अ प्रॉब्लम फॉर अस.
ओके, सो द प्रोडक्शन हैपेंस बेसिस ऑन द प्रेडिक्टेड डिमांड, होपफुली.
यस. आल्सो वन मोर थिंग इज दैट हमारी स्पेशलाइजेशन है कि हमारा प्रोडक्शन लीड टाइम इंडस्ट्री में सबसे छोटा है. तो हमारा रिस्क कम हो जाता है कि हमें 6 या 8-10 महीने पहले प्रिडिक्ट नहीं करनी पड़ती डिमांड. हम 3 महीने.
यू एनीवेज प्रोड्यूस ऑन डिमांड?
We produce for a short forecast. Yes, for a short forecast, short demand frames हम short demand forecast पे करते हैं कि अगले 3 महीने की क्या डिमांड होगी. तो रिस्क काफ़ी कम हो जाता है उसके कंपैरिजन में, क्योंकि आप ऐसे नहीं है कि 1 साल का स्टॉक एक साथ खरीद के रख लिया.
ओके. बट जैसे मैं लेंसकार्ट पे जाता हूँ, आई बुक लाइक आईवीआर, कभी भी मुझे इमीडिएटली नहीं मिलता, राइट? इट कम्स टू मी इन अ डे और 2.
Yes.
That's when you produce it at that moment, or you take it out from your existing stock?
So the frame would have already been in the warehouse.
Stock, okay.
The lenses are fitted on demand.
Fitment होती है बस.
Yes. So the lens is like basically on demand, just in time type inventory.
So they're not just in time produced, the frame also. No. It's already there in the stock.
No. So in our case, for example, it takes almost maybe like 50 man hours to make one frame.
Okay.
So that cannot be
That
done.
will increase your
Yes,
delivery
because there's a
time.
lot of hand processes, finishing, polishing, etc. It's a relatively longer manufacturing process. So on demand नहीं हो सकता. But of course, there are technologies like a lot of 3D printing technologies have started coming in, where there could be on demand.
थोड़े मार्जिन्स के बारे में बताओ. लाइक आईवियर कैटेगरी में नॉर्मली क्या मार्जिन्स होते हैं? इस इंडस्ट्री क्या मार्जिन पे ऑपरेट करती है?
डिपेंड करता है कि सोर्सिंग की क्या स्ट्रैटेजी है. अगर आप मार्केट से रेडी डिजाइन पिक कर रहे हैं या रेडी स्टॉक पिक कर रहे हैं, उसमें अपना ब्रांड लगा रहे हैं, तो इट कैन बी एज लो एज 25-30%.
Okay. Gross margins.
Yes, gross margins. And if you move towards the luxury end of the spectrum, तो वहाँ 200-300% margin है.
200-300% margin.
Yes. But even at a decent price positioning, 35-40% margin बन सकता है.
Okay.
And then of course it depends on how premium you position your brand ultimately. और फिर scale पे भी depend करता है. बहुत ही bulk production है और आप supply chain में invested है, तो फिर वो भी आपको cheaper पड़ेगा. So, but overall, in comparison to a lot of other consumer goods markets, yes, definitely a pretty attractive space.
But why do these premium brands like price such an exorbitant way कि 200-300% टाइप का crazy margin है?
क्योंकि वो पूरा end-to-end
Control कर रहे हैं.
So they can so the word in markets like this is basically a price maker, right? So because their competition also uses them as a benchmark, so everybody is at that price point. So because of which, when someone like Lenskart comes and changes the game, they are challenging the price maker. So that is really the reason that जो category के leaders है, उन्होंने प्राइस एक सेट कर दिया है, तो कंज्यूमर के माइंड में ऑलरेडी एक बेंचमार्क प्राइस है वो.
करेक्ट. नाउ यू डोंट लुक एट के यार ये इतने का ही होगा. यू ऑलवेज लुक एट के 10,000 का है तो इतना तक होता ही होगा. इट्स अ लग्जरी ब्रांड. मेरे ख्याल से 8-9 हज़ार का खर्चा होगा तो 1,000 रुपये का इनका मार्जिन होगा. दैट इज हाउ पीपल थिंक ऑफ इट. बट दे डोंट रियली रियलाइज के यार आई थिंक वो 500 रुपीज़ का ही मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कॉग्स होगा उसका शायद. और बाकी का प्योर प्ले मार्जिन है बिकॉज दे आर प्लेइंग विद द माइंड्स ऑफ अ कंज्यूमर इन दैट वे. That's a very crazy game.
It is, and also because at the end of the day, it is not like if you see the rest of the industry, जैसे टेक में आप देखेंगे तो जैसे प्रोडक्शन बढ़ती रहती है तो कॉस्ट कम होता है.
करेक्ट.
कस्टमर के लिए. करेक्ट. इन दिस केस इट्स नॉट के ऑनेस्टली चश्मा 100 साल पहले जैसे बना था रफली वैसा ही है. द एक्चुअली इनोवेशन दैट्स हैपेंड इज हैपनिंग मोस्टली इन द लेंसेज, राइट, एंड द क्वालिटी ऑफ द लेंसेज. अभी मायोपिया कंट्रोल ये सब भी बहुत टेक आ गया उस रिलेशन में. दैट इज वेयर द टेक्नोलॉजी इज सॉर्ट ऑफ इज, बट द फ्रेम बाय इटसेल्फ इज नॉट फंडामेंटली चेंज टू मच.
ओके. लास्ट चीज मैं आपसे पूछूंगा, व्हाट एग्जैक्टली इज द फ्यूचर ऑफ जॉन जैकब्स? लाइक डू यू लुक एट, आपने बीच में टच किया था उस बात को, गूगल लेंसेज हैं. इफ यू वांट टू एंटर इनटू द एआई पार्ट ऑफ इट, you might be looking at the software category rather than the hardware category. But how do a frame company build the software AI part and in the same ecosystem?
So I think the future will come across many lenses, I would say. So today we are obviously a leading premium player in India, but I do think there is a lot of opportunity within the market also. So I'll share one number. It's a 10 to 12% CAGR type growth market overall, but the premium market will grow 15-16%.
Overall market size क्या है पर अभी?
FY22 में $4 billion था, and
इंडिया की बात कर रहे हैं.
इंडिया की $4 billion, and 6.5 to 7 billion is a forecast for FY27.
That's mass or premium?
That is the full eyewear business, organized, unorganized, both.
Including lenses?
Including lenses,
okay.
yes.
Okay. Out of which premium category would be?
Premium by itself is 30% of only the organized business. So it's like close to $1 billion market is premium. And
that's the market you are attacking?
That's the market that we are focused on, yes.
Okay.
So for us, the big one is definitely to gain more share within that premium market is going to be important. Ultimately, AI and those glasses will be a critical aspect, but at the end of the day, the reality is vision correction is the heart of our business, right? So we are very firm. We are, of course, a sunglasses, very strong focus on sunglasses, but eyeglasses is the heart of our business. So that is not going to go away. So offering better products, more innovative materials, etc. within that will definitely be the heart of what we do. We would love to create more lifestyle segments associated with eyewear. That will be something that's important, and partnering with IPs, people or categories that are closer to the brand will be something that we're focused on. On the tech front, yes, I think my expectation would be that the parent will have a technology investment, and then we create the frames that adopt that technology investment.
By parent, you mean Lenskart?
Yes, but in our case, for example, the most important thing will be that it has to have some level of adoptability already. I don't think for us, we are interested in creating that market or creating that category because it's not the heart of our business. And I think, and it's a very big mistake for young businesses like ours to spread ourselves too thin. So the core will remain in the short to mid term for sure, and then it will expand. And then, of course, our big goal is to be more and more global. So we are today in Southeast Asia and the Middle East, but we would love to explore and grow in more markets.
एक last question पूछूंगा. Sunglasses की आपने बात की है अभी, right? So I obviously have a number. मैं number use करता हूँ.
Yes.
तो मेरे को sunglasses में बहुत problem आती है, right? I can't find a perfect sunglass that also can accommodate a number.
Yeah.
Because there are not many options that can accommodate a number.
Right.
Right? Clip-on is one of the, I think, innovation that has been there. I'm crazy fan with the clip-on product.
Yes.
Lenskart से ही मैं वो लेता हूँ. बहुत crazy innovation है, मुझे तो बहुत पसंद है. जिसने भी देखा है, they have now moved on to clip-ons.
Yes.
But why are we not seeing so much of innovation happening? What's the limitation?
So let me bring one piece. One is that the innovation is also happening on the front of the fitting technology, right? So for example, in John Jacobs today, almost 90% assortment, you can put a prescription sunglass or prescription eyeglass lens. This number even 2 years ago was just 50%, mostly because the fitting technology had not reached that threshold. So today, if you are a sunglass wearer with a prescription, you can find prescription lenses, and there are multiple color options there that you can add. Clip-ons, of course, are a very interesting innovation. I think the reason it's not happening is because one is that it requires building that market. I think it's a little, maybe because it's slightly expensive to do so. Also, I think Indians are not very high users of sunglasses just yet. So that's why I find that even though sunglasses globally are quite a large segment, in India, it lags from the eyeglass business. So really, more adoption will also aid more innovation, and then vice versa. Brands like ours need to do more work to make the customer try new products.
Okay. बहुत मजा आया मुझे. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate that. People, I'm sure, would literally get to know so much about how to build an eyewear business, how to do market, how to price the product, supply chain. बहुत कुछ सीखा आपसे. Thank you so much for being here. You want to say anything to the people who are trying to build eyewear category? Anything at all?
Yeah, I still think there's a lot of opportunity. There are very few brands in the market if you still think about it. And even the international players don't have a very large market share. So I know it seems daunting because there are large players already in the business, but it's still, I think, very early days. And more brands also mean more innovation, and more competition is always good for the customer. So yes, I hope that there are some listeners who would be interested in this category.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.